selected as the invocation a couple of the invocations from the Upanishads, because today we're sponsored and organized and inspired by the Vedanta Society. And the Upanishads, every single word deals with unity. So we needed something from Advaita philosophy to get us started here today. I've been inspired by Sukuyanji to talk about the questions that have come up that Western medical physicians may ask us as Vedic healers. And I think I became very much aware of these questions throughout my career, but especially in 2010 when I published my book, Body Renewal, The Lost Art of Self-Repair, and gave but signed, I should say, the book for many Western physicians, especially my own colleagues, who said, "Oh, you wrote a book, I better read it." And they read the book and say, "Well, wait a minute." And so these are the questions.
Can we sit here so we can be able to see the questions?
When you finish your presentation, you come.
And then we come. Because we are not able to
We are not able to see the slides. So
Okay, very good.
Yeah, thank you.
So they will be those questions are asked to you, you know.
But we have to see that at least.
Okay.
What is the question? What is suppose to this question?
So these are the, when they say, well, wait a minute, hold on here a second. These are the questions that they said that came up. So I'd like to just go over these briefly so that you might be able to seize on these questions and perhaps seize on other questions that you may have been asked as Ayurvedic physicians or as Ayurvedic practitioners that you've had to deal with, and that we can sort of see as a whole, maybe think how Ayurveda can present itself to the world. Because in 1972, when I first discovered Ayurveda, I was in India at the bedside of a patient at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. I was just doing a 6-month time as an elective and part of my vacation. And I said, "What's that little pile of herbs there?" And the patient said, "Don't tell the attending that I have them." I said, "Okay, as long as you tell me where you got them, I'll keep it a secret." And that's when I started my odyssey in Ayurveda. And from that point I said, my life's goal will be to make Ayurveda an absolute word. So it's these issues that come up in the way we present ourselves to the world. And I always tremble a little bit, just as I sometimes tremble when politicians embarrass me in front of the world stage. I get embarrassed sometimes when articles appear saying that 25 out of 27% of the herbs that were sampled out of Indian grocery stores had some heavy metal contamination, and we shouldn't be taking these things. So I'd like to see how we as an Ayurvedic or a Vedic community can better present ourselves to the world. So I'd just like to throw a few things out. And I've taken out the issue of herbal preparations, which Dr. Nasari has very well covered for us. So number one, the premise of the premise of Ayurveda is that rishis, great sages, who have refined their nervous system to the extreme degree.
It's nervous. This system is nervous. This system is
It's not,
nervous.
okay. rishis refined their nervous system to the extreme degree, and on the basis of that refinement, were able to cognize not only the Vedas, the poems flowed out of their nervous systems, but practical aspects about them. And this is how Ayurveda was defined, not by empirical trying. It may have been some empirical trying and this and this and this, but rather it was some enlightened sage who said, this plant is good for this plant is good for this. The theoretical basis for Ayurveda, all of these things are really subjective forms of gaining knowledge as opposed to objective, and so these questions may come up. You're going to trust intuition as opposed to experimentation and seeing what works. Ayurveda is a science of medicine where we give prescriptions in a therapeutic strategy that involve all aspects of the individual's life. Meditation for the mind, yoga for the body, diet, herbal changes, achara science, behavioral science. You should sing this, you should do this. You should purify yourself through panchakarma. You should chant mantras throughout your day. Take little balls throughout your day. Prepare those little balls. It can be very onerous. So how do you do a controlled clinical trial when one group is going to be doing all these things and the other group is the control? Do we prepare sham treatments that we make up things and make the other group spend hours every day like the Ayurvedic patients? Would that be ethical? To have, like they do sham acupuncture treatments, just puncture, put needles in random places, and compare that to acupuncture treatments that are placed very perfectly by an Ayurvedic practitioner. So how do we do these studies when we're giving a holistic treatment for every aspect of the patient's life? Which brings up this other issue. How do you ask patients themselves to spend time and money on treatments that might not be studied yet? Hours every day, thousands of dollars for a panchakarma week. Is that really ethical when we haven't proven that it works yet? Then this issue that I actually discovered in 1972 at Banaras Hindu University, when I went to a lab that they were doing exactly what Dr. Musari was describing, was extracting parts of the plant. You know, one of the first real Western, we'll say Western borrowing or stealing from Ayurveda was when the Swiss went to India in the 1930s and extracted, and said, well, what do you use for high blood pressure? And they said, well, this right here, it's Surpaganda. And they went and they found Reserpine, which they found was incredibly powerful compared to all the other antihypertensive medications that were used in those days, mainly mercurial diuretics, actually, at lowering blood pressure. But Reserpine had its side effects. It made people depressed, slowed them down. So, and yet we've extracted many other things from plants that we use even today, digoxin, many other things from Western medicine are scopolamine, belladonna. They're also extracts from plants, whereas in Ayurveda, one might say, well, we should use the whole plant. So that's the fallacy of the active ingredient. The Western doctor would say, well, wait a minute, this is the part that works. Why should I give a whole bunch of unquantifiable herbs like we used to use digitalis leaf when I practiced medicine in Africa for a short period of time? And of course, times of the year. Very different from another part, and it's very toxic medicine, potentially. Are you guys policing yourselves? This is one thing that comes up in every NAMA conference. Should we be credentialing Ayurvedic practitioners and saying you guys should be going to standard Ayurvedic medical schools? Well, some of the finest Ayurvedic doctors, certainly that I've known, have subscribed to the Gurukula school, where you follow one enlightened master around for 12 years and finally he authorizes you to practice. How are you going to credential that person who hasn't really gone through and studied in a standard format? It was introduced really only in the early 1950s, after partition, when for all these thousands of years the way you learned Ayurveda was with a master. Since when does blood come from fat and not from bone marrow? Is this really, this is is this theoretical structure of Ayurveda where we talk about the dhatus and the doshas? Look, here's where blood comes from. Blood comes from the bone marrow. Well, how come you say that Rakta comes from rasa? So, your theoretical basis for anatomy and physiology has been shown to be invalid, and yet you stick to that. Why don't you change and come up to date with what the world has shown? Which brings us up to the issues. Are your Ayurvedic theories too simplistic? Maybe somebody has rosacea or psoriasis, some skin disease. Well, it's a pitta disorder here. Just take pitta diet, pitta pacifying herbs, everything's going to be fine. Whereas Western medicine say, well, wait a minute, hold on, there's an immune issue here, and there's some other issues here. So I get that a lot. That coated tongue isn't common. That's thrush. Here, just give him some nice dap and swish and swallow. It's going to be okay. Well, what do you mean that's common? It's an infectious issue. So there may be other explanations for these signs and symptoms than the way we see things. And then, of course, the issue of whatever is old is in Ayurveda is called ancient. And what is truly ancient, say 1,000 years old, Ayurveda calls eternal. Come on now, And then this issue we were talking about before, we're asking patients to adopt onerous lifestyles that aren't compatible with Western culture. And I think I appreciated this very often, because in my practice I've always had, when I had my Ayurvedic center here in Lancaster, I always had a Vaidya by my side. Maharshi Mahesh Yogi, my own master, made sure that there was not just any Vaidya, but a great Vaidya by my side. And of course, they were often at my house, and they would see my wife and myself and say, well, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. And finally I realized that if I did everything that all the Vaidyas had told us to do, there wouldn't be any time in the day to live, much less to meditate. So this is one of the things that comes up, is that we're asking patients to do a lot more than I do in my standard Western practice. Then there's the issue of medical ethics, which is very different. My colleagues will say, the most important thing in deciding what to do when you're faced with something of life-changing importance is autonomy. This is America. Independence. We're based on liberty. So the patient should know